Hey YouTube, Marko with Marko's Garage, coming today, 57 Chevy. We're just getting the motor mounts in. As you can see here, I have what I talked about the other day was getting the hot rivets out. I got a little bit of a grind mark here. So that mount goes on here like this. I'm going to drill it, but I'm also going to give a couple of tack welds. That mount will sit in there. Got the other side all prepped. Did some welding on the frame. The weld had separated. And then just touched up some welding on this side. Alright, so we got the mount in here, and I got a couple of bolts in. They're loose, like this. That allows this mount to move around. The same on the other side. Okay, what we're going to do is get the engine in, dropped in. We're going to use a test block. I'm going to get the bolt through here, get everything lined up. Then with the welder, I'll give a weld. We took the paint off here, see that? Got the paint off. Going to weld that up a little bit, just like a couple of tack welds, and that'll hold this in place. Then we'll go ahead and drill holes here and put 2 more bolts. So that's what we're going to do. Get the engine dropped in, test fit, tack welded, pull it back out, drill the holes, bolt it up, all good to go, ready to paint the other engine, drop it in the car. Okay, you can see they're fairly aligned, but we're just going to drop in that engine and check. I want to point out that these engine mounts are a must if you're going to change the transmission in a Tri-5 Chevy. Because these front mounts, they're basically like stabilizer links. They're nice and strong for the arrangement on the original mounts that have the transmission ears, because you get 4 locations. It's quite triangulated. But if you were to take the transmission out of the equation, the old 2-speed Power Glide, and you put in something else behind it like a 700R, and you don't change these front mounts, there's not enough strength in there to hold an engine in there safely, and especially if you're going to run some horsepower torque like what we're putting in. How are we there?
Bring it up
A little bit.
a little bit more. Half foot. Right there.
Okay.
Lower down. Good. Good.
Back
Stop.
a bit.
Back. Oh. Back half foot. A little bit more. All right. Lower. Stop. Back. A little bit more. Hold on. I can't see that side.
Yeah, come. Perfect. You got one of the bolts? There we go, we're in. Okay, so if you look here, you can see I got the bolts in here, and you can see where it's going to be at. I'm just going to do a couple of things. See if we can get the alignment right on this, where we're happy, and then do some tack welding. We got the engine mounts in place, and we got the engine block, just a dummy block in place. Got the transmission in here, let me show you. The cross member's not in, let me talk about that for a sec. That's just basic tubing with a mount on it. That accepts a dual GM transmission mount that will bolt up to there. And then this bolts onto the transmission. Now it's important I get the transmission placement in and the engine mount so I get the alignment right. Like I said, we want everything to sit in place properly before we bolt it and weld it all in. And I'll show you why I'm going to tack weld it. Alright, so if you can see up here, we have a little bit of a gap here. I can almost stick my finger under there. It's not quite sitting on the frame. So if I would have just drilled that and bolted that in place, I'd have a hard time lining up the engine mounts with getting that bolt in. Okay, so I got the engine crane here supporting the engine, and I had to take a little bit out of this mount here, just with a little die grinder. By doing so, when I get that mount in there, it will actually allow it to clear the frame, and we can get this back together. And then if this lines up nicely with cross member, then all I have to do is give it a couple tack welds. We can pull this engine out. I got the engine mount welded in the front here on both sides. Now I'm gonna, when I pull this engine out, before I put the other one in, I'm gonna drill holes, bolt it in. Just doing all testing. Also want to show you that, yep, distributor does fit in the engine. Good time to test that, of course, before you mount it. Go underneath here. Got our transmission mount welded on both sides, basically tacked, and on this side as well. Okay, and also on the front. See that? Okay, the holes are drilled here. They wanted me to drill. Didn't come with that hole in there. Now we have to take this cross member out again. Hold the transmission up with a floor jack. And then drill through here, through the chassis, and then bolt it with the supplied hardware. Bolt it into place. It's not going anywhere. And if you need to remove this cross member, you can undo a couple bolts. It uses a standard GM 2-bolt mount there. Alright, you got your transmission. This is a 700 R4. See it all in there. Has good clearance. I don't know if you can see. It's not touching the floor, anything like that. I had to also, a note, I had to cut the exhaust. The mufflers were here. And they were going to run into the cross member. So the exhaust will either have to go up and over or under this cross member. Not a very friendly cross member for exhaust, but in any case, had to cut those mufflers off, so I cut it off just behind the mufflers. Also has good clearance. This is just a dummied up oil pan, same idea. Good clearance on the steering. Did a couple of welds there, bolts are in. See the weld over here. Okay. So that's it. That's basically everything that we're going to talk about for mounting the engine in with those mounts. Now I can also length measure it up so we can get a drive shaft cut down for this car. So yeah, basically all I got to do now is prep the engine, sand the engine. I used these Scotch-Brite pads here, and they're the red Scotch-Brites, and scuffing the engine and getting it all prepped and ready for paint with that KBS engine motor coatings. So once all that gets done, we'll get the engine painted. You'll see the process there, and then we'll get it in the car. So anyway, here I am prepping the engine with my friend Dave. He's working on one side, I'm on the other, sanding it down. Everything will clean up nice or paint nice. So anyway, the intake has to get painted as well as the engine block. The intake's getting painted in aluminum color, and the engine block is getting painted orange. Okay, first coat on the small block Chevy. This is the KBS motor coatings. Not exactly sold on it yet. It's definitely fish-eyeing and doing some crazy things, and I've cleaned and prepped this, wiped it down with wax and grease remover. I'm not exactly sure why it's doing that, but anyway, hopefully the other coats. This side's just terrible. Look at that. I've never had this happen with engine paint before. So far, I'm not excited about this KBS coatings, but we'll see. Okay, KBS motor coatings on the engine after a couple of coats. Looks really good, actually. Was a little bit concerned after coat number 1. Got a couple of coats, just let it dry an hour between coats, and it looks pretty good. And the finish seems nice and durable, which is good. We've been kind of working with this engine, putting in the chrome timing cover, harmonic. It worked out really well. Okay, so a couple things I want to note. The original timing cover on this crate engine was plastic. This is on the Vortex style engines. It has less bolt holes and different style bolts, which is why we had to buy those ARP bolts that go here, and the chrome timing cover. It does have the extra holes in the block, in case you're wondering. The only thing you do have to do is there's a couple of dowels that you have to get and put in to hold this timing cover, as the dowels in the crate engine are built right into the timing cover. So you just have to get those dowels. I happen to have them out of that test fit engine, so it wasn't a big deal. Intake also got painted aluminum so that the aluminum doesn't go white with aluminum oxide. Alright, so we got the bolts hardware in as well as it's welded, so to hold these retrofit mounts in both sides, all tightened down, ready to go. Got the torque converter in, the transmission there, transmission's in, ready to drop that freshly painted engine in. I just got to do some paint work on the frame. Some of it I'll do after the engine's in. There is a very tight fit on the top of the bell housing. There's a body lip there, but it doesn't hit when the engine's in. I just have it jacked up to get the engine out. Engine's in. Okay. Now I do have to paint the chassis. I'm going to do it with a brush anyway because I don't want to get overspray on anything. So there's enough room I can do every little piece of this chassis with a brush. Won't be a big deal. I did pick up some trim clad semi-gloss paint to go over that whole frame. So that's going to be touched up there. That'll be one of the jobs. I did get it in the garage here now, which is kind of nice. My camera died while I was filming it, putting it in, so I didn't get the footage of that, dropping it in. But you can see by not having all the crate engine parts, I freed up a whole ton of room in the garage here. So I'm going to be able to actually get the car in at an angle and actually have room to go down either side of it. I'll jack it up, work underneath it, and get everything happening. Now, before I leave this video, I'm just going to show you with a couple of dress-up things what this will look like. These valve covers, obviously, I used them sort of to mask the engine off while I painted. But they come right off, and as you can see, I got no overspray inside the engine. They worked quite well. And well, let's put on the carburetor and valve covers, distributor, and see how this engine looks. It's not in, but it's just to see how it looks. Alright, there you have it. That's how it'll look. Minus headers and wires and all that stuff too, but just to give you an idea what those valve covers look like against that orange paint. Distributor in place. You can see there's a lot of clearance there, just like we saw earlier. This engine also has decent amount of clearance behind the valve covers to the firewall with these engine mounts. Even more so on the driver's side. I do have to install the gas pedal, which I can still get back there, so the distributor will be out for that. Well, there you have it. Engine's in. Engine's put in the 57 Chevy, trannies in. I still have to do up the torque converter bolts, drive shaft measurement, got to mount radiator, electrical. There's still tons to do this car. Probably about 40 hours of work went into this point, and then another 60 hours or so, maybe even 100 hours to finish it. And there you go. It doesn't happen overnight, but over this last weekend, I had my friend Dave, as you saw in the video there, give me a hand. Him and I worked really good together. Was able to get a ton of stuff done, get a big ball rolling, get the engine in the car, painted. Now I can work around it. And just got to clean up some things in my garage here. I'll be able to get the car moved over a little bit. I can do it all right here, so you can do it at home in your own garage too. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. If you like these videos, please subscribe, hit that like button, ring that bell for notifications. I'll see you next week and have yourself a great day. Thanks for watching. Did you get them all, Sandy?
What?
Did you get them all?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter, but just...
No, I don't.
Because you gotta remember the footage, I'm gonna edit it anyway, so... Whatever.
I don't care. I wasn't sure if you wanted me in there or not.
No, I don't mind. Grind mark here. Go past that mount. So that mount goes on here, like this. Alright, so if you like these videos, please subscribe, hit that bell. If you like these videos, give it a thumbs up, ring that bell, give it a like. If you like these videos, please subscribe, ring that bell, hit that. Anyway, if you like these videos, please blah 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 blah. Yeah. Anyway.